So, from a manager's point of view, if a person is motivated and has the ability and is given the opportunity, in all probability, they will perform to our expectations. So this speaks to the unit standard 242819. How do we motivate and how do we build a team to achieve our objectives? There are several documented theories of motivation, and these are grounded and founded on substantial scientific research. The interesting fact that you will notice is that some of these findings have been practiced by you intuitively, which really confirms the truth of these studies, as they have their roots in scientific observation of other human beings. Now, there are several theorists and several theories around that you could research, but for our purposes, we will just look at Maslow's, Herzberg's, and Mcclellan's. The want that someone has creates the drive in individuals, and how this affects the way a group might interact with each other is based on that. What emotions are invoked and whether these hinder or enhance the group's motivation. We'll cover more of these theories in a little bit more detail. But human beings are complex, and so we must be aware of all the other variables that might affect the behavior displayed in a group situation. Essentially, it can be boiled down to self-preservation in one or many areas. And these are framed and colored by our culture, our personality, the knowledge that we have, and our appetite for conflict, and a way of being that we have developed to preserve ourselves. Maslow's hierarchy of needs. This is what he called the needs theory. People want more than they have, and once the need is satisfied, it is no longer a motivator. Only unsatisfied needs can influence behavior. Needs are arranged in order of importance on that scale that you see in the triangle. Physiological needs for food and water, safety, needs for security and stability, and then social, the need for friends, and then self-esteem starts to go to the higher needs, where we're looking at self-actualization and development. Now, once a lower need is satisfied, it is then replaced by the next level, and in that order. But what is also true is that if the circumstances change, for example, you lose your job, you can gravitate to the lowest rung again, and the cycle would start all over. I need to take care of my basic needs, food and water and shelter. I need to look at my safety needs, security and my health, and so on, and then you go up the line. Herzberg kind of looked at that as well, but he looked at it from a slightly different perspective. He said that there were motivating factors and hygiene factors. So either from a motivational aspect, where you were satisfied and not satisfied. You were not dissatisfied or dissatisfied, and we'll unpack that a little bit. So what he was saying is that these two factors, the first one, motivating factors, is really about job satisfaction. Am I happy with the job that I do? Is the work satisfying and fulfilling? Am I loving what I'm doing? Is it enriching? And the second factor, which was hygiene factors, these say whether I'm not dissatisfied or dissatisfied. And these relate more to the working environment within which I do my job. Is the culture a team playing culture, or do I feel isolated? Do I work in a cramped, dark office space? So although I might be enjoying my job, the hygiene factors would make me dissatisfied. If all of those factors were taken away and I was in a good environment, then I will be not dissatisfied. But they do not necessarily motivate me to do work. The motivation comes from the actual job that I do and the value that I see in it and how it fulfills the inner needs that I might have. So Herzberg went further and he explored some of those intangible areas, as I was saying. Herzberg points out that if managers only focus on the hygiene factors like increasing the salary and a nice office and a better job title, that does not necessarily give me a greater motivation, greater job satisfaction. Herzberg focuses his attention on the job-centered factors in the motivation of employees who have an interest in job enrichment. Mcclellan's theory, this is the third theory that we're going to look at, he alludes to the complexity of human beings, that they have acquired certain needs as they have developed, and these needs are learned over our lifetime, and they influence the way we do things, but they're influenced by our culture, by our education, by our experiences, and our value system. He believed that all people have these three needs: for power, for affiliation, and for achievement. But it depends on what is more dominant. What is the more dominant need that the person, and then that will determine how the person will behave in a particular way. For example, if someone has a dominant need for affiliation, and we've heard the old adage, praise in public and correct in private. And so we might go with that whole idea. And so someone who has a high or a dominant need for affiliation, praising them in public, albeit for a job well done, will in their minds be alienating them from their peers. By praising them in public, they would appreciate being praised in private as well. So there are different courses for different horses. To take Mcclellan's theory a little bit further, the need for affiliation would be displayed by individuals that are team players. They want to support the group. They want to have good working relationships. They want to be recognized and praised by their managers, but not in public, in private, so that they don't stand out from their peers. The need for achievement is one that can be acquired or trained. Employees can be trained to stimulate this need if they have the desire to excel. Now, high need achievers are motivated by non-routine, challenging tasks. They do not necessarily make good managers though, because it is a personal need to achieve. The need for power tends to make people good managers, but they don't have a need to be liked. They want the status that goes with being a good manager and in charge, and they will get the job done regardless of the individual and how they treat them. But although we've separated these into these three categories, you'd have a more dominant area and a less dominant area. So there's still a mix between the other two needs. So you need to be able to compare these various theories. Compare the basic definition that each theory explains. It will be useful to tabulate the different theories to be able to compare them. Consider how the different managers would be able to use the knowledge of the different theories to motivate an individual. You cannot use a one-size-fits-all approach. And therefore, those unit standards that we covered in the fundamentals on language speaks to how you need to have and develop a skill of being able to communicate and to engage in sustained communication, to be able to convince, to be able to elicit information from your subordinate. Now that we have some understanding of what and how people can be motivated, we should be in a better position to help them improve performance. Remember the SWOT analysis we discussed? We started by doing one personally and then putting a self-development plan into place. So we would do a very similar SWOT analysis with your staff member. This is an exercise where we would extend this, but the important aspect to consider is that it should be done in collaboration with the staff member, and the emphasis is on development, support, and commitment, and it must culminate in a committed plan to action which must be monitored and tweaked and supported all the way to the end. So remembering what we have learned from our theories of motivation, and that there are different strokes for different folks, how will you give feedback, correction, and redirection? How will you back up the feedback with verifiable facts that you have personally observed is an important way to boost morale and to keep people motivated.